This meeting is being recorded.
Thanks for the update.
That's right. Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. Being that we haven't had an episode in the last couple of weeks, Matt and I were going to talk about both rounds of the NFL playoffs. I had my notes ready to go, ready to talk about the first round first, just being a little chronologically. Oh, I threw them away right before I got on the show. Just absolutely threw them away because this past weekend in the NFL playoffs is the craziest weekend I can remember. I don't know about you, Matt, but this was some of the best football for an entire weekend that I think I've ever seen. And we got to kick it off with the Chiefs and Bills game. Arguably one of the best games that I have ever seen. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but Matt, I know this is going to be my first question to you. It's the question everyone's talking about, and you probably know it's coming. Does the NFL need to change the overtime rules?
Yeah, but not super drastically, because what we were all frustrated. I don't think any of us last night wanted that game to end. Every game this weekend was near perfect in every way, shape, and form. But what we forget with the other three games is that they were kind of slow. The Titans and Bengals game, it started slow and got exciting at the end. The Packers and 49ers was just we're playing in a blizzard. It's a slugfest type game. The Buccaneers and Rams game, which we'll get into, was just absolutely manic in the last minutes. This game was a game you wanted to watch from first quarter to the last pass in overtime. This game kept your interest the whole time. There were no dull moments in this ball game. What you saw were two quarterbacks putting on a clinic, and none of us wanted that to end. But it's got to end, and that's the problem. You're in the playoffs. The NFL playoffs are on one of the tightest schedules you can imagine. And whether you want to admit it or not, you're going to have to play the following Sunday at either 3 or 6:30, and you're going to have to play another very good team. And if we adapt college rules into that, I have no doubt we would have been entertained beyond belief. But it also probably would have gone on an extra 4 hours with the way those quarterbacks were slicing up those defenses. We're talking about LSU, Texas A&M type game if we did college style. So, yeah, I think we need to amend it to the point where we can have both teams touching the ball. But we have to be a little bit more concrete than what people are saying, because we just can't have games go on for 5.5 hours. And, by the end of the fifth overtime, we're losing guys to dehydration. We're losing guys to concussion. We've already lost Tyrann Mathieu in this game. We can't lose more going into championship week. And when your schedule is that tightly condensed, you've got to take that into account when you amend the overtime rules. But obviously, they got to do something about this. I mean, we can all talk about how the Bills defense should have got a stop. But nobody was stopping anybody in that game. I think I probably could have scored a touchdown by the end of that game if I was a wide receiver, because I'm deceptively fast, even in spite of my size. But they got to do something about this. The fans want it. I don't know if the players want it, but I just don't know if there's a great answer. If you do it if you just play it straight for an extra quarter, that's definitely taking wear on the body. If you play it college style, the games will probably never end. So I don't know. I've heard ideas being floated about, the defensive team getting the ball, the away team getting the ball first and playing from there, and just seeing how the rules work from there and letting them choose offense or defense to avoid the coin flip. I think if we just avoided the coin flip, that would make a lot of people feel a little bit better. And instead, I don't know how you would do it, but yeah, they got to do something, because I don't want to say anticlimactic, because nothing about that game was anticlimactic. Everything about that game was Hollywood movie beat, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars blockbuster epic. Everything about that game, especially the last 2 minutes, which were just a nonstop thrill ride. So it does feel kind of anticlimactic that we all knew the game was kind of over when they flipped that coin and Kansas City wins the toss. But at the same time, there's a lot of data points we need to take into account when we think about how to reform this in the best way possible. So, yes, we've got to do it. I just don't know how. I don't want this game to end 72-74 with 3 guys getting hurt. But I also don't want it to end with the minute that coin flip happens, we know who's going to win. So, I'm conflicted. I really don't know which one I want more.
I think that's a very common way of thinking that I think you share with the rest of the NFL fan base community. We all know that this has to change in the fact that you want to see both teams get the ball. But we can't agree on is what is the best way to go about that, doing that. I've heard all kinds of different things, whether it's be on Twitter or whatever. The best one I've heard is, according to a good friend of mine, Matt Spencer, is that he's for that playing an extra period, and if there is still a tie after that, we give it to the kickers. Offense and defense couldn't decide the game for 5 quarters. Now let the kickers kick field goals.
So the soccer model.
Kind of, exactly.
Like where if you play the extra timeout, you let the teams battle it out, and then if you can't do it in that period of time, you got to get penalty kicks. Now that is an interesting concept because I think if you would have played 5 more minutes of just straight up ball game with the Bills and Chiefs last night, and then gone into a Butker Bass kickoff, I think that would have made people feel a little bit more like the NFL is fair. Because you would have at least given them 5 minutes. It's not a lot of time. It's a lot of wear, but not as much as 10. And you probably still would have had 3 touchdowns. I mean, given the way that game was going. So I think that's actually not a bad idea. I would actually rather enjoy that. And then because people are going to blame kickers regardless of what happens in the outcome of the game. Who cares if it's a penalty shootout or in the last 5 seconds? No one. They're going to blame the kicker anyway because that's what fans do. So that is an interesting concept. I do like that. I can't lie. The soccer model would be kind of interesting to see.
It's funny you say that we blame kickers regardless, because if the Chiefs would have lost, that Chiefs fans and people rooting for the Chiefs might have gone back to the end of the first half when Butker missed that kick, even though, in all fairness, it was a 50-yard kick. But I mean, the kicker is one of the most. It sounds like one of the more simple jobs to do in the NFL. However, it's one of those things, if you make it, you're a hero. If you miss it, you're a villain. So, I mean, there's really no win, or it's a really thankless position in a lot of ways. It's a job that people expect you to do. You only really get a lot of recognition when you don't do it, if that makes any sense. But, yeah, that game had pretty much everything that we wanted. I mean, it has a quarterback duel for the ages because Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, of course, we expect this from Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen is a very good quarterback. We're still kind of on the cups of how good really is he. And the aspect of this game that I don't think anyone is talking about is this is going to determine how for real Josh Allen is. Because if you remember, you fast forward a couple years back, not fast forward, rewind a couple years back, this is how Patrick Mahomes' first playoff run ended. It was in a battle with the New England Patriots and, of course, the GOAT Tom Brady, and then, of course, the Dark Sith Lord. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. Reference to Bill Belichick. I know you're shaking your head at me, and that's fine. But yes, the Patriots got out to the big lead. Patrick Mahomes makes the comeback. It ultimately comes down to this infamous coin flip in overtime that the Patriots would end up getting, and then marching down the field, and Patrick Mahomes never gets a chance. And now what has been phenomenal about that is Mahomes has been able to rebound, win a Super Bowl the next year, and now they're on to their 4th straight AFC Championship appearance. So this, to me, is going to tell how for real Josh Allen is. How does he respond to this moment? It's either going to go one of 2 ways. He's either going to sink or he's going to swim. If he swims and then he comes back next year with a vengeance, I know, Joe, that Josh Allen, he's got it. But if he doesn't, I'm not ready to say that what everyone else on Twitter and the social media platforms are saying, and that's that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen is the real Manning versus Brady of this generation. I'm just not ready to say that because I need to see how Josh Allen responds to this moment.
I think the problem, too, it may not be Josh Allen as much as it is next year could be a totally different landscape in the AFC, for reasons we're going to get into. We know that Patrick Mahomes is going to be there. We know that, Justin Herbert's going to be there. We don't know who else is going to be there because we've already have one shocking guy, the guy who's actually playing in the AFC Championship game, in Joe Burrow, who's come out of nowhere. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be in Denver or Pittsburgh. We don't know if Deshaun Watson's going to be in Miami, which is in the same division as Josh Allen. I think this might have been, and I don't want to sound, and this is going to come back and bite me in the ass. I know it's going to come back and bite me in the ass. I think this might have been the Bills' last best chance to get in there because I'm thinking about the landscape in the AFC. Let's say that Aaron Rodgers does go to Pittsburgh or Denver, or let's say Deshaun Watson ends up in Miami. The Patriots, they still have a really good defense. Mac Jones might get better. It's going to be a lot tougher. That conference, and I'm not even talking about Baltimore yet. Baltimore's still got a good team. The Titans will have a healthy Derrick Henry. I don't even know if it's going to be Josh Allen's fault if the Buffalo Bills don't make it back, don't ever make it out of the AFC, just because that conference is slowly becoming more and more crowded. I mean, and like I said, I'm being speculative here. But next year, we don't know what it's going to look like. I think the AFC is going to be so crowded next year, there may not be any breathing room for anybody. And we are forgetting too, there was a span this year where we all thought the Bills were dead in the water. They were like the 8th seed. They were struggling. They got blown out by the Colts 41-15. And then they go on one of the hottest streaks in football to get in there. So, yeah, I do think that it's going to be interesting to see how the Bills respond to this. But at the same time, I've got a glass half empty feel about them just because of the way the AFC is shifting. And it's not even Josh Allen's fault. Josh Allen went out there and he had a quite literal perfect playoff series. 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, beat the doors off Bill Belichick, almost beat off Patrick Mahomes. But that's the one thing for me that made all the difference in this game is that Kansas City has been there before, and they coached like they had been there before.
So championship pedigree.
Oh, for God's sake. I should have never uttered that phrase. But yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, think about that last sequence. Buffalo isn't sure if they're going to squib it or not. And because they don't squib kick, Kansas City gets put into a perfect position to get the ball with not having to waste any time. You think about the way they played Travis Kelce on that last play with as many guys as they sent in that blitz during that situation. And Eric Bieniemy, who should be a head coach and should have already been a head coach, in my opinion, and he will be very soon, already knows how to take advantage of that kind of set, and he does. He finds Travis Kelce wide open for not a chip shot field goal, but definitely not a 67-yard field goal to tie the game. And that's what made a difference to me is that the Kansas City does have some championship pedigree. They look like they've been there before. And the Bills kind of, they seem like they were like, oh my God, the miracle has happened. And they forgot there were 13 seconds left on the clock. And I know it sounds like I'm burying the Buffalo Bills, but this is the kind of thing that, whether you want to admit it or not, it does linger with you. When you're 13 seconds away from victory and you just get beat like that on a couple of mental error type plays, that's the thing that, even though we all wish no one lost that game, it was one of the best football games we've ever seen. That's a mental thing. That's going to stay with you regardless. You are going to think about the time you had Kansas City pinned at home with 13 seconds to go, and then through no fault of your own as the quarterback, you never touched the ball again because of a couple of coaching gaffes and then a coin flip. And that's the kind of thing that stays with you. So do I think Buffalo is going to be like 3-13 next year or not make the playoffs? No, Buffalo is going to be a playoff fixture for a long time. The issue is going to come with how do you overcome that mental block that comes with being so close to victory, and then through a series of just strange bounces of the football and bad communication, do you come back from that? Come back from that dejection. Come back from that they own us type mentality. Because this is the second year in a row you've been beaten by the big bad bully in the postseason, and you even beat them this year in the regular season quite handily. And now it's just kind of got like the, oh no, what if we really can't beat these guys? So yeah, Buffalo will be in the playoffs. They're going to be a fixture, but this kind of feels like a loss that ruminating on it is going to hurt them a lot more in the long run than just burning the game film and moving on. So that's my 2 cents about it. It's just like Kansas City's coaching staff. I know they have the best quarterback in the league and they got the best tight end, but their coaching staff is a big reason of why they played to win the game. All right, I don't want to hear about George Kittle or Mark Andrews. Let's just keep going, and for the sake of argument,
We might talk about the real best tight end in the game later on, but where I'm going to go with this is going to touch on what you said and
Best
that
tight end.
is right. And that is what separates the good from the great. And how do you respond to this? And that was kind of my point about Josh Allen, because his counterpart Patrick Mahomes had to go through the same thing, and Sean McDermott needs to take a similar approach to Andy Reid to Patrick Mahomes and telling him that when times get grim. Sorry, I almost pictured that. When times get grim, turn into the Grim Reaper. One of the hardest statements I've heard in a long time.
I absolutely love that from this when I saw it this morning. That's an all-time quote right there.
Might be the best quote I've ever heard. And I got some very quote-worthy quotes when I was a sports writer for the Sentinel News. I even got some very quote-worthy quotes when I was the sports writer at IUS.
People do give.
And take a wild guess which coach gave it.
I'm gonna say Wiley.
No, it wasn't Wiley.
Robin?
Who?
Robin?
No.
I don't know. Joe Witten's got good one-liners when he was there.
No, it's Coach Real,
Oh yeah.
the baseball coach.
The baseball team's the best team we've gotten. I always forget about them.
I was going to say, yeah, our baseball team is literally our best program. Oh.
What did he say? You got to give the quote now. You can't just.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I can't just not give the quote. Well, I forget he brought in. I was talking about the impact that he brought in their closing he brought in their closing pitcher and how the confidence they had that he was going to be able to close it out. I forget the kid's name, but he said that they called this guy the Reverend, and then he said he took them to Bible study.
Is he a big Hozier fan? Is he going to take him to church or something? Or
that's the vibe I got out of it.
Hey,
I would have even saw for that he baptized him. That would have been a good one too.
He is the Holy Spirit was among the team that day. You know what we say on this podcast? So Jesus loves you.
Jesus loves you. That's right.
Jesus loves you.
Oh, but some of the other teams of this weekend probably. Some of the other teams that we're going to talk about probably feel like Jesus does not love them right now because every team this weekend lost in heartbreaking fashion. And which brings us to the next game that we're going to talk about, and another game that happened on Sunday night, and that was between the Rams and the Buccaneers. And I'm not going to lie. You know, I did not watch this game because I was on a date night with my girlfriend. We went it was a good reason. I promise. I didn't just try to avoid it for no good reason, but I didn't watch this game, but I was following the score. We did a couple good things. You know, we went to this Lego convention at the convention center downtown Louisville. She really enjoys building Legos. Then we went to go see the new Scream movie, and that's where I'm going to make the correlation with that game. When the Rams went up 27-3, then when we got out of that movie, all of a sudden it's a tie game. And I'm thinking, you know, we've seen this movie before. This Tom Brady on the other side of it's Tom Brady. It's a Tom Brady-led team. We've seen this. The Atlanta Falcons know better than anyone. But when Matt Stafford hit Cooper Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal, it told me right then and right there, and this is where the Scream reference is going to come in. If you've seen the movie, you're going to understand this. If you haven't, it still doesn't spoil or anything. But Stafford and Kupp did not want to be a part of the requel. And the Rams were able to eliminate Brady. And now we have an even bigger topic talking about. Is Tom Brady going to retire? I think that's the next $1 million question, Matt. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, he's not going to retire. I don't think Tom Brady's a competitor. He's going to come back. I think he felt with the way this game played out, because I actually did watch the game because I'm alone and sad. With the way this game actually played out, I think Tom Brady is more convinced than ever that he can come back and win another Super Bowl, because this first half of this game is almost indescribable. Everything that never happens to Tom Brady's teams happened to Tom Brady's teams. They dropped balls, they didn't get pass interference calls, and they were mentally breaking down. There were at least 3 personal foul for misconduct penalties, and Ndamukong Suh is acting like he did in Detroit when he was stepping on Evan Dietrich Smith. He's yelling at the refs. Levante David is throwing his helmet onto the field because he's mad about his blown coverage. Even Tom Brady himself got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for getting into it with a ref. And if Cam Akers doesn't fumble that ball well within like the last minute of the first half, we're not even talking about this game because it's over. At that point, they would have been going down around 30-3. Tampa Bay's not coming back. And then in the second half, just like you said, it happens. The magic begins to happen. He hits who's that?
Mike
guy?
Evans.
Mike Evans. I keep wanting to call him Mike Davis because of the IU stuff, but I know that's not right. He hits Mike Evans. There's a bad snap on a drive that should have been a difference maker for the Rams. It goes right over Stafford's head. They get the ball back. Cam Akers fumbles again in his own territory with the game on the line, and Tom Brady ties it. And you're just thinking, here comes the inevitable. Here comes the inevitable. And Matthew Stafford, to the Rams' credit, they come out with 41 seconds left, and they actually try to do something. And on the first play, Matthew Stafford gets sacked, and you're like, here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
The Tom Brady opponent, inexplicable, stupid decision where Matthew Stafford throws it into double coverage. It gets picked off, and somehow with 1 second left, Tampa Bay uses their last timeout to kick a game-winning 60-yard field goal. And sure enough, Tampa Bay gets great pressure. Matthew Stafford throws it into double coverage, or he throws it into something that doesn't look like as good of a ball as it turned out to be. And instead of that happening, Cooper Kupp is right underneath it, catches it right out of under Antoine Winfield, and runs for an easy chip shot game-winning field goal, which is the antithesis of the Dallas Cowboys game with Matthew Stafford being a veteran. And the Buccaneers lose. And you're just kind of taken aback because that's not something that happens. Tom Brady's team did not play like a Tom Brady team in the first half. They come out in the second half and they play like that team and they play like they're down 28-3. And instead of getting the Tom Brady walking off the field, wagging his finger like, I can't believe we did it, it's a freaking walk-off kick for the Rams. So no, I don't think Tom Brady's retiring. Because if you would have told me that was a scenario with 4 minutes to go in that game, I would have said, well, then the Buccaneers are going to win. And this Buccaneers team played like absolute garbage mentally and on play calls the entire first half and still found a way to get into it. They're still in a terrible, god-awful, abysmal, I can't even think of enough words to describe it, division, where if Tom Brady had one leg, he'd still be the best damn quarterback. I'm sorry, Jameis Winston. I'm sorry. I know you're really good, and I like you, and I wouldn't mind it if you had a horseshoe on the side of your head, but you're coming off an injury. But that's just how it is. He's still the best quarterback in that division. The Buccaneers are still the best constructed team in that division. And even playing their absolute worst, the most absolute garbage half of football I've ever seen from a Tom Brady team, they still almost won the freaking game. There's no way. Tom Brady is a competitor. If he's going to go out, he's going to go out a winner. He's not going out at all. That's what I got to say. He's not going anywhere.
I'm going to have to agree 100%. But, of course, we had to entertain all the social media experts and address them because that's kind of what we do on this podcast. We address the social media narrative. Of course, he's not going to retire. The man just led the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns and set an NFL record for completions, all at the age of 44, no less. The man said a while back that when he sucks, he'll retire. Well, he clearly does not suck because he just led the NFL in all these categories at 44 years old. But yes, if Tom Brady's going to go out, he's going to go out the way he wants on his terms. And that's as a winner, picking up his 8th Super Bowl, which I believe he can still do. Yes.
Oh, there's no question. Especially next season. I'll go on for a little bit. Because like I said, we don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be. We don't even know if Jimmy Garoppolo, who's in the NFC Championship game, is even going to be the starter on his team next year. It could be Trey Lance. So, I mean, the landscape is still wide open for Tom Brady. His team is well constructed. He's not going anywhere unless he gets ring number 8. I really think that's going to be his If he gets it next year, I think that's the end of Tom Brady. I think if he doesn't get it next year, I think he's going to go one more year just to try to get ring number 8. I think that's his end game. I really do think that's his end game. And I mean, with the guy's in great shape, I mean, I just can't imagine a world without Tom Brady. As sad as it is to say that as a Colts fan, I can't imagine a world without him.
On from the quarterback that lost in that game to the quarterback that won that game. And I'm going to talk about another topic that isn't being talked about because it's a very common thing. It's a common theme in the world of sports this year. We're seeing it in the NBA with DeMar DeRozan in Chicago. And now I'm going to translate that to Matt Stafford in LA. They are the epitome of how important a supporting cast is to your morale. Because Matt Stafford never really got the recognition that he's getting this year because he was in Detroit or because he was throwing to Calvin Johnson. It was more him than Stafford, yada, 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 despite the fact that Stafford has been the quarterback on 2 of arguably the most productive receiving seasons in NFL history. But now that he is in LA and his first season away from Detroit, he's onto the conference championship game. He's knocking off the GOAT to do it. Matt, is it any more clear right now of just how important it is to have a good supporting cast around you? Or do we as fans just bank too much on being that unsung hero that has to carry your team game in and game out?
Les, I am going to answer your question, I promise. But first, I just want to say there's a reason why Matt Stafford is winning. Where did Matt Stafford go to college?
Georgia.
Who won the national championship?
Georgia.
Who won the World Series?
The Braves. Oh, I see what you're doing there.
Everything in Georgia except the Falcons has been blessed. And so that's why Matthew Stafford keeps winning. But to answer your question, Les, yeah, it's no question that this is why wins are not a quarterback stat. Let's be honest. Wins are not a quarterback stat because who was going to go to Detroit and help Matt Stafford? Who wants to play in Detroit? They drafted Calvin Johnson. Nobody is going to willingly wake up in the morning and say, I want to go play for historically one of the worst franchises in the NFL because they have an all right quarterback. And, I think I want to play Green Bay and Minnesota every year. And the Bears, who are usually pretty good. I want to go to one of the toughest divisions in sports, to a non-glamorous city with a good quarterback who's elite, but not as elite as some of these other guys, and win. Peyton Manning couldn't even get guys to come in and play with him. So, and that's in Indianapolis with him being one of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time. So, yes, I'm not going to lie. It does help when you're in LA because you're given a lot more to deal with, because we want to act like Matthew Stafford is the only player that the Rams have acquired. For God's sake, they've got Odell Beckham Jr. They've went out and traded for Von Miller. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They signed Leonard Floyd to a lucrative deal, and they had Aaron Donald to begin with. Not to mention, you added Sony Michel, you added Cam Akers, and Darrell Henderson hasn't even played this year because he's been hurt. If you would have given Matt Stafford this kind of team in Detroit, there's no question they would have been in the playoffs every year. But he wasn't in Detroit. He was with Detroit, which is a skinflint franchise who lucked into having a really good quarterback and an all-time receiver, and they made the most with it because that's what Detroit does in the NFL. And I know it sounds like I'm bashing Detroit here, but that's just how it is. It's the reality. When you think of Detroit is a meme, just like Cleveland when it comes to the NFL. So yeah, it's got everything to do with. There's no doubt in my mind that Matthew Stafford is a great, great, great quarterback. But there's no doubt in my mind it also helps when you're throwing to Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee and Odell Beckham Jr. and Van Jefferson. And let's not forget they got rid of Deshaun Jackson. He could be part of this team as well. And not Les, can you even tell me who the second receiver on Detroit was? Was it Roy Williams?
It was Roy Williams for a while. There was Golden Tate for a while. But to feed into your point, no, Detroit did not have the talent that LA's been able to surround with Matt Stafford. And even just saying all of this, you give a guy who played in Detroit for majority of his career and he's still the quickest, to this many passing yards or this many passing touchdowns. And he's somehow, some way still going under the radar. I'm a big believer that stats aren't everything. It's all about winning. But Detroit never really gave him a shot. Okay, yes, that's great. You know how I feel about receivers. Yeah, he had one of the best receivers of his era, but congratulations. If they can't get a stop or they can't protect Matt Stafford, who really cares? So,
yep.
But LA has all of that. They have a defense. They have an offensive line. They have receivers. They have running game. They have it all. They are a legit Super Bowl team. And I don't think it's obviously not crazy to say that, but that's the team that they went out and tried to acquire. When they, we talked about early in our podcast, that is why you go out and that is why you go out and get the Odell Beckhams. That is why you get the Von Millers. But yeah,
that's the key point, Mark. He's with a franchise who's willing to. They know they're in an attractive city. They know they've got money. And you know what? The Rams, for as maligned as they'll probably be for this in 2 or 3 years, they realized one thing that I don't think we're getting enough credit because, I think the reason we feel like we do about receivers and draft picks is because the Colts had an interchangeable group of receivers, and the Colts have hit on their draft picks, or it seems like they've hit on most of them. But let's be honest with ourselves. We act like draft picks are the most valuable thing on earth. We act like they're gold, but they're more like cubic zirconia. Sometimes you hit them and they're beautiful, like Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson. But if you go through and you see all the guys who are busts, like even Bjorn Werner, Trent Richardson, if you can trade those guys for a bona fide, maybe a little bit past his prime superstar, then you're going to end up in a position like this where you have a lot of really talented guys who are playing for one last contract, who are playing for one last ring, who are going to go out there and make a world of difference. And that's something Detroit can't do. Detroit is more of a draft and speed frugal franchise, whereas LA is like, we're big, we're sexy. We don't necessarily need draft picks. We will get guys to gravitate towards us because of this. And we're not giving, I don't think the Rams front office enough credit here. Let's not forget, these guys were in a Super Bowl 2 or 3 years ago. And they went there with Jared Goff and Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley. And do you know where Brandon Cooks, Todd Gurley, and Jared Goff are now?
Not
the Rams. On the Rams. They're other places, and they're right back there. And, we had a little bit of a dip in quality, but not nearly the dip in quality you would get with other teams who are rebuilding. I'm sorry. And we'll get to rebuilding later. But that, to me, is the beauty of this whole thing, is that, the Rams have realized that you don't necessarily need draft picks if you want to win now. If you want to win now, you got to go out and you got to get talent from places like Detroit, places like Jacksonville, put it all together, shake it up, and see what comes out. And that's the thing that a lot of franchises won't do. And I think it's great that somebody's adopting what seems like an NBA model, and they're having this kind of success with it.
I think it's not that teams necessarily don't want to do it, it's that they can't do it. Because I think, to a point you just alluded to, some of these cities aren't attractive to go to. Why do you want to go to Indianapolis? What do they have to really offer that LA doesn't? Or another, or Tampa Bay might offer. But it's not that they maybe don't want to. They do want to, but they either don't have the funds or they don't have the attraction. And that's basically what it boils down to. Now, enough about the Rams, and I think we need to talk a little bit about the Bucs. They have I think we all know that they're going to be fine. They signed Vita Vea to a contract extension. He's really the heart and soul of that defense. If Tom Brady comes back, which we assume he is, everything's going to be fine. They have everything in place to make another run. But I think that's enough about that game. I think it's time to move on to a game that I also want to talk about, a game that I became a fan of a certain team, at least for a 3 to 4 hour period. And that is the Bengals and Titans game. And Matt, I know I'm gonna let you take the floor on this one because you are the one that predicted the Bengals to go to the playoffs this year. But now that they are in the AFC Championship game, are you even a little bit surprised to see this?
Anybody who says they're not is lying. Absolutely lying. And I just think that it's great that this game on Saturday gave us the ultimate retrospective on the 2021 NFL draft, where you know what I'm going to go with this. Everybody and their brother, including myself, I was a little bit flummoxed by it myself when the Bengals took Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell. And we were all like, oh, no, Joe Burrow, he's going to die. They're going to cause him to blow up his ACL. And instead, he got like one of the greatest rookie receivers of all time, possibly a future combination along the lines of Rice and Montana out of it. But he still got sacked 9 times. But you know what, Les? They won. They won. He got sacked 9 times, and he won. So, maybe that offensive line wasn't as important as we thought it was going to be. Now, I'm hesitant to say that because as a Colts fan, I know how important that is because we all know what happened to the guy who didn't play with an offensive line who could do this in Indianapolis. But still, it's just amazing to watch the Bengals, who, everyone had like going, I think the best record projection had them at 7-10. And now they're in the freaking AFC Championship game against a team, let's not forget, that they have beaten. They have beaten the Chiefs once, and even though it was kind of fluky, they still won. So, I mean, it's just amazing to see this. It's just amazing to see that. Because, I mean, the Bengals offense is very much, I don't know how to say this without sounding too reactionary, but I think they have like greatest show on turf potential with the way they've got. Because we want to act like it's just Chase and Burrow. When they've got a guy like T. Higgins, they've got a guy like C.J. Azuma who's coming into his own. They've got Joe Mixon. Excuse me. And who knows who they're... Sorry, I'm going to take a drink. Ugh, my throat's dry. Ugh. And who knows who they're going to get in the draft. They have some real potential here to become an offensive juggernaut. And I know they're probably going to end up drafting an offensive lineman, and that's perfectly fine because that's what they should do. But with the makeshift offensive line they've got right now, they're doing pretty damn well, I would say. And I just want to talk about the Tennessee perspective here a little bit. I don't know if Derrick Henry was the right decision to do here. I feel like he threw off the flow a lot of times, especially on like that 4th down play. Where, like, we all know it's going to Derrick Henry. Even the Bengals knew it, and they stopped him behind the line. That's something that never happens to Derrick Henry. He's King Henry. It kind of seemed like their offense wasn't flowing, and it was flowing a lot better when Deonta Foreman was in the game. You saw how big his touchdown was, where he just rumbles all the way down. So, I mean, I that game was more of an anomaly than anything else. I didn't think it would be super high scoring. But I thought there would be more than 19. It was going to be more than 19-16 with Derrick Henry and Joe Burrow on the same field, but it wasn't. And I mean, I don't even think the Bengals defense did anything over exceptional to turn Ryan Tannehill over. It was just a series of horrible decisions by Ryan Tannehill. Excuse me. A lot of failed reads and a lot of failed coverages, especially on that first interception to Jesse Bates. It was just absolutely incredible watching how bad that ball was. It was underthrown and right to Jesse Bates. So, Les, I'd like to hear your take on whether or not the Titans should have brought back Derrick Henry for that game.
My take is that that's what you're going to be expected to do because when you have a star player like this and you have a chance to play him, that's what you want to do. However, this is exactly what I expected from Derrick Henry. He looked like a guy who hadn't played in forever. He looked like a guy that disrupted the flow of a team that kept momentum going even in his absence. And he looked like a guy who took carries away from a Longhorn in Deontay Foreman. I had to throw that in there. But no, absolutely.
You're forgiven.
Yes. But the thing is, anytime you have a star player and you choose not to play them, and God forbid you lose, that is going to be the number one area that everyone and their mother is going to look at. So, and if you're Mike Vrabel, you had no choice but to play Derrick Henry. Obviously, maybe you could have balanced it out a little more, given with the flow of the game, give a little more carries to Deontay Foreman. However, it's still Derrick Henry. He got going at times. He looked like the Derrick Henry of old, but you could just tell that he had not played in a while. It wasn't just that he was trying to, not re-injure himself. It was also he didn't have that chemistry with his offensive line built up back yet. You saw that. But here's my other takeaway from that game. First off, my man Joe Shiesty, Joe himself, he's special. The man was sacked 9 times and still got up and kept making plays. Unbelievable. Yes. Here's the problem with that, though. We have seen this before. We have, yes. And I'm not saying his career may end the way Andrew Luck's did. But if this is going to be a repeat offense, the Bengals are going to ruin a special quarterback in the way that the Colts cut Peyton Manning's career short. Yes, this was not just an Andrew Luck issue. This started in the Manning era and then cut the career of Andrew Luck short. So Bengals, learn from us, if anybody. If we do any justice to you, just learn that you have something special here. Take care of it. And I was one of those people who thought they should have drafted Penei Sewell. Not because I did not believe Jamar Chase was great. I did. I said Jamar Chase was the best receiver in the draft. I said Jamar Chase was better than Justin Jefferson when he was at LSU. And Justin Jefferson turned out to be pretty dang good in Minnesota. However, Joe Burrow is that franchise. My bad. Joe Burrow himself is that franchise. He is the future of the Bengals' success. And if you do not protect him, you're not going to get many of these runs. This might, what you said about the Bills, this might have been their last chance. If the Bengals don't protect Joe Burrow, this is it. This is as good as it gets, and it's not going to get any better because everyone is a prisoner of the moment right now, saying that the Bengals are living proof that offensive line is not as important as it may seem. Wrong, because even though the Bengals are on a run right now, if they do not get that offensive line, that's not good. This runs like this are not going to become common for them, or they're not going to be existent at all.
And I think you're totally justified in saying that because we know that's true. We've seen it firsthand. I mean, Andrew Luck, his second year, they were in the AFC Championship game. It looked like they were going to be a fixture, and then third year.
Yeah, it was third year. Yeah.
Still, it was early on.
But yeah, he got him to the playoffs his first year after a 2-14 season, then to the divisional round, then to the AFC Championship. Still, playoff success right away.
And then we all know what happened. The injury started. It started to get worse. He lacerated his freaking kidney, and it's over from that point. It's just over the minute he lacerates his kidney.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, we can't understate what Joe Burrow has done in Cincinnati. Because, the Colts, at least, they had a little bit of a pedigree because of Peyton Manning and because of successes in the 50s and 60s in Baltimore. Cincinnati doesn't get that. Cincinnati is usually, when they're good, they're okay. You remember those Carson Palmer, Chad Ochocinco teams? They were okay. Occasionally, they win the division. Usually, they were a wild card, and they'd usually get bounced in the first round. And, especially in the mid-20 odds, 2011, 2012, or 2018, 19, 20, the Bengals were usually pretty damn bad. And in 2 years, you've gone from Joe Burrow is hurt all the time. The Bengals are going to be 7-10 this year to they're in the freaking AFC Championship game. That's pretty damn impressive. That's a turnaround caused by literally one guy. And, I don't even want to give a lot of – I do, but I don't. But I don't even know how much of it actually is Zach Taylor at all. As much as it is the hometown kid coming home and playing like a boss and getting his wide receiver and then just going out there and taking names and turning around a franchise. It's incredible. So I give all the credit in the world to Joe Burrow because of that, because we don't think about Cincinnati as having a franchise guy, and now they do. And the Bengals just need to keep that as like their top priorities, keeping him safe.
And it's crazy, we talk about, the Bengals not having a pedigree that some of the other teams have. And, before Burrow, we're talking about maybe a Carson Palmer or a Boomer Esiason being the best quarterback in franchise history. I think at this rate, if we're able to keep him healthy, if they're able to allow him to develop in the quarterback that he can be, he is by far. I never saw this level of play from Carson Palmer. I really wasn't a thought when Boomer Esiason was playing. But I have seen Joe Shiesty. I have seen Joe.
You are doing disrespectful things here to the 1981 NFL MVP, Ken Anderson, sir.
My bad.
A guy who should be in the Hall of Fame, damn it, but is not. No, I like Ken Anderson a lot. But yeah, Joe Burrow, if he stays on this trajectory, he's by far the best quarterback in Bengal history. So it'll be interesting to see how I don't think they'll beat Kansas City twice, but it'll be interesting to see how they go out there and perform. It really will.
Speaking of Joe Burrow, oh wow, I messed up that time. Or Joe Shiesty.
I'm not saying Shiesty. I don't know what it means.
But speaking of Joe Burrow himself, I mean, every time I can't help but to think, though, because we talk about the hometown kid going to the hometown NFL franchise and delivering. But there was a time and place that he could have gone to the quote-unquote home state university, and he did. Never played it down there. How much of that is a blunder that Joe Burrow never played it down at Ohio State? Hello? One.
This meeting is being recorded.
I know. No, I don't think Ohio State fans care that much. They're fine year in and year out. LSU, they may have had the greatest team of all time in the BCS era, but what did that get them? Ed Ogeron's gone now. Those guys are gone now. They've got Brian Kelly, who we've already established as water in a Mountain Dew program. I think Ohio State's going to be just fine. I don't think they stay up at night wondering what would have happened if Joe Burrow was their starter, because it's like we said this entire show. Situations matter. And if a situation isn't good, there's no guarantee you're going to get the same outcome. Joe Burrow may not have been the quarterback he was at LSU, at Ohio State. That's the bottom line.
And it's also worth saying that, do we get this version of Joe Burrow if he never hooks up with Joe Brady?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because that guy, Joe Brady, my God, he's a quarterback whisperer, even if he didn't work out in Carolina.
Right. Absolutely. But that's about all I have to say about the Bengals and Titans game, unless you want to add anything.
No, but I wouldn't mind if you let me take the lead on the last game.
Not at all. Let's go into the Packers and the 49ers game.
Les, I'm going to say something that you might find blasphemous, but I'm going to say it anyway. Aaron Rodgers is Peyton Manning. Now, let me explain before I see your head explode. Think about it, Les. Two quarterbacks who are absolutely dominant in the regular season. They have 4 MVPs to their name. They're great at getting you the 1 seed. They're great at getting you just to play your best right before the playoffs. And then they become the kings of disappointment once that calendar flips to January. And there's no reason for it. They're not even particularly playing poorly, but they just end. They just ends. The season just has a different feel once that calendar flips. And much like Peyton Manning, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have the exact same career arc. He's going to win 2 Super Bowls, and his second one ain't coming in a Packers uniform. It's going to come in a Steeler or a Bronco uniform. I think he's going to have the exact same career as Peyton Manning, and I don't think it's unfair to say they're the exact same player. Two guys who, if you're playing a regular season game, are the greatest of all time, unquestionably athletically gifted, have a tendency to turn no-names into great receivers. But once that playoff rolls around, you're giving me Tom Brady every time, because there's just something about those two gentlemen in the playoffs that just does not mesh at all. And I love Peyton Manning more than life itself, but I just got to be honest here. He and Aaron Rodgers are almost the exact same guy. The difference being, I would want to have a beer with Peyton Manning, and I would just want to kick Aaron Rodgers in the you-know-where. That's the only difference. Are you okay?
Yes, I am perfect, and here's why. Because this is exactly what I knew was going to be said, and this is exactly why, when I told you that I was going to rant, this is exactly what it was going to be about. Because, yes, I hear the Aaron Rodgers and the Peyton Manning comparisons all the time now, especially that because of the shortcomings into the postseason, because of the expectations that we have for both teams and both quarterbacks. Here's the problem with that. Peyton Manning as long as we can remember, has had the narrative that he is not successful in the playoffs. And I understand that. He didn't get his first playoff win until his 5th year into the NFL. So 2003 with that wild card matchup against the Broncos. I remember that game well. He threw for 5 touchdown passes. Man, did he look good in that
was a
game.
good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. Oh, yes, that was a great game. However, here's the thing. As much of prisoners of the moments as we are, we often pick and choose when we are prisoners of the moment. Because I look at Peyton Manning's career in hindsight, and I see 2 Super Bowls. I see 4 Super Bowl appearances. I see 4 Super Bowl appearances with 4 different head coaches. And then I look at every other quarterback with a Hall of Fame resume, not named Tom Brady, in his era. And that's not just Big Ben, that's not just Eli, that's not just whoever. That even includes Elway. That even includes Marino. And I look at that, and there is nobody else whose playoff resume is better. He has a winning record in the playoffs, so it's not like he's under 500 or anything. Again, 2 Super Bowls. You know, you got Ben and Eli and Elway, who all have the same, but nobody with more. So for me, we keep saying this narrative that Peyton Manning is this playoff choker. He doesn't get it done in the playoffs. But again, when there is only one of his Hall of Fame peers that is doing better, and he has still like either at or even exceeded the status quo of his peers, it's hard for me to say that he has this issue in the this issue in the playoffs that everyone seems to think he does. And here's another issue I have with this. When Drew Brees was in the tail end of his career and he was breaking statistical records, and then I kept seeing on social media that he was the real GOAT over Tom Brady, this, that, and whatever. I had a problem with that. Here's the number one reason I had a problem with that. Because as a Colts fan, as a Peyton Manning fan, I remember those narratives that he can't get it done in the playoffs. He can't do this. He can't do that. Well, Drew Brees missed the playoffs half his career. So if we're going to hold him to the same narrative, because apparently they're on the same level. So we have to hold these people accountable in the same way. How are we going to knock a quarterback more for losing in the playoffs than one that is not making the playoffs to begin with? I can't do it. That's not how my brain is wired. That's the issue I have. And that is all coming full circle to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is phenomenal in the regular season. And we know that these NFC Championship games have been his quote unquote woes. I know this year was the divisional round, but you get the point. My thing is Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl. So when we say like he can't get it done, that's already an incorrect statement because he has a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl MVP. You're right in the sense, I do agree with you in the sense of how his career might end. He'll go to a different team and then he'll get that one last Super Bowl and then right off in the sunset. But my thing is, we got to stop saying that these quarterbacks don't get it done in the postseason because they have. And not only that, there's only one quarterback that has been better, and that is the greatest of all time himself. That is my rant.
And I think you're saying the reason why we say this without really saying it. I think the problem with Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers is they're just both so damn talented that we're shocked that they only have 2 rings or 1 ring. It's not so much that we think they're bad or something, but nobody talks about Eli Manning and Peyton Manning in the same breath. I don't think anybody's going to put Peyton Manning. But I like Eli Manning. I think he probably will get in the Hall of Fame. But I don't think anybody's putting Eli Manning in the same breath as Brady and Elway and Manning and Rodgers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason we make this comparison is because these 2 guys are so flippin' good that we don't want to believe that they've only got like 3 Super Bowls between the 2 of them. It feels like they should have more, so we judge them harsher than we do like a Tom Brady, or not Tom Brady, a Ben Roethlisberger, an Eli Manning, or something like that. They're so good that we're kind of underwhelmed by the fact they only have X amount of wins and they're not carving people up in the playoffs. And I think that's really where I get like this comparison from, is because you're just
This meeting is being recorded.
and I think it's just because we expect so much of them because At one point, like Aaron Rodgers this year's touchdown interception ratio was like incredibly low, like the lowest we've ever seen in the history of the NFL.
He does that every
Compared
year.
to, like, yeah, we see that every year. The guy's a 4-time MVP. Peyton Manning's a 4-time MVP. I think we just 5. Yeah, sorry. I think we just kind of struggle to marry the 2 points that like these guys don't really have all this success, as much success as we think they would. I think that's why we're so hard on them, is because we expect so much out of them because of how good they really are. And there's nothing incorrect with anything you said earlier. Everything you said was 100% right. Peyton Manning's over 500 is over 500 in the playoffs. He went to the Super Bowl 4 times. We don't talk about 2 of them because they didn't go very well. One of them not very well at all, because 43-8 is probably the biggest blowout we've seen in our lifetimes. And it's just weird to think about it. We just don't really think about the fact they only have that many Super Bowls because it just feels like they should have more. That's how good they are. And I think that's the reason people are making this comparison, is because, yeah, we like Ben Roethlisberger is a good quarterback. Eli Manning's a good quarterback, but they're not Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers. They're not guys who, when you watch them play, you're like, oh, that's something only that guy can do. And when you watch those two play, you think that several times a game. So I think that's the reason why we keep bringing this narrative up, is that they're just such a step above everybody except Brady, that you just want them to be better than they are. Or you think that they're better than they are. And it just kind of takes you aback and makes you come up with a narrative, because that's just what we think. As human beings, we are programmed to do that, make comparisons between things. And that's just the natural one. 2 guys who are arguably GOATs, who are just kind of shocked, don't have the one thing in football we've decided we're going to measure everything against. But nothing you said is wrong. You're completely right. It's kind of, we kind of exaggerate Peyton Manning's playoff failures, and that's just how it is. That's just how it is. When we create a narrative, when we create a comparative or a story as people, we have a tendency to stick with it. And regardless of what the evidence says, we stick with it till the very end.
Here's my next question, Matt. I have a question, Matt. How exaggerated are these playoff woes for Rodgers and Manning, given the fact that they play in the same generation as Tom Brady?
A million. I mean, Les, what were just 30 minutes ago, we were talking about how Tom Brady almost did the most epic comeback in playoff history again.
Again, yeah.
27-3, not as impressive, still pretty impressive. And I mean, when you think about how Tom Brady's gone up against both these guys now in conference championships, and, you know, Peyton Manning's had more shots at him, and Brady's had more shots at Manning, obviously. But they've gone against each other, and Brady has bested them both at different phases of his career. That doesn't help. That doesn't help at all.
I will say this before you continue. It is worth noting that Peyton has a winning record against Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Well, I was done anyway. I was saying you're completely right. It's just when you see somebody like Tom Brady who can like win under any circumstance as well, who's got 7 rings, and could very easily have 10. It's the scary part. He could easily have 10 or 11 right now if he gets a kick yesterday and a non-helmet catch in 07 and God knows what else. It's amplified by a million because you're literally with the GOAT of GOATs. There's no doubt. And that doesn't help, no.
But as for the game itself against the Packers and 49ers, you know, it was a typical Lambeau playoff game that we've come to expect. You know, it's freezing rain and snow a little bit mixed into there. It feels like it's 2 degrees, apparently windshield, and none of the offenses can really get going.
No.
I think, you know, the before the weather came in, the Packers were able to march down the field and get a touchdown. But as soon as it happened, you know, they were pretty much stagnant the entire game. The only touchdown for the 49ers came off a block punt.
Maybe.
And so, Matt, this brings me to my next question. Because with the 49ers moving on to the next round, my question is, what is your feeling about Jimmy Garoppolo?
You know, it's hilarious, Les. You and I had this discussion a couple weeks ago about Carson Wentz. How in the modern NFL, You can't have a game managing quarterback and win anymore. And then Jimmy Garoppolo is like, hey, you see that narrative you've got there? I'm going to kick it to shreds. And just decides to go kick that narrative to shreds because that's what Jimmy Garoppolo does. Because, Les, I don't think of all the quarterbacks left, there's no question Jimmy Garoppolo is a distant fourth. A distant fourth. And in the league, he's not even really top 12. Not even close. But the guy does have, here we go, I'm going to say it again, championship pedigree. Because of his time in New England and his time with Shanahan out there when they made the Super Bowl. And I mean, it's just, there's no other way to describe it. When a guy knows how to win, when he's been around winning, when he's in a winning system, it rubs off on you. We act like in America you can pull yourself up from your bootstraps and become a CEO. That's not the case. You got to have a lot of balls bounced the right way, be born in the right place, be born in the right place at the right time, be in the right room at the right time, get the right money, and then you can become a CEO. And Jimmy Garoppolo is like that. He's good looking. He's in a great organization. He was in a great organization before he was in a great organization. And it turned him into a CEO. He's winning. He's got a good team around him. He's got great weapons. He's got Debo frickin' Samuel. He's got a really good defense that seemingly is getting better by the game, even in spite of their injuries. So I don't even know what to say about Jimmy Garoppolo. He may be the Joe Flacco of our generation. And I mean that in the best way possible. A guy who isn't flashy, but isn't terrible, but who can play into the strengths of the team he's on, lean into his defense, lean into the offensive weapons he's got at other positions, and just win with his good coach. There's really no other way that you can say it. There's no other. I think he's a lot like that. He may be slightly better than Joe Flacco, but I see a lot of comparison there. It's all situational for me for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's great. I just think he's good enough, and he's in the good enough system for him.
And here's my thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is because I'm the type of fan, I really don't care what type of numbers you put up. I care about, can you win? Can you make the plays to win? How do you impact your team in the win column? And so Jimmy Garoppolo on paper looks like a quarterback that I would absolutely love because, one, Garoppolo has a 31-14 record as a starter of the San Francisco 49ers. You want to take any guess on what it is when he doesn't play?
Not good.
7-26.
That is not good.
Not good at all. So on paper, it looks like, I should be very high on this guy. He should be one of my, he's a winner. He doesn't do anything crazy, but all he does is win. However, you actually watch the games and you're like, this guy is not the reason they're winning at all. No way.
It almost feels like they're winning in spite of him.
Yeah. Like it looks like this team should have a much better record when he doesn't play than when he does anyway. Because I watched, watching that game against the Packers, he did absolutely nothing at all until the final drive. No. And that final drive does not even matter if his special teams doesn't get a block punt touchdown. But yet, I don't know if it's like you said, I don't know if it's good juju or good luck or what, but he just finds a way to win. So I got to respect it. But, when I watch him, like, he's not doing anything. I'm not, he's getting severely outplayed by the guy on the other side of the field. His defense is making the right stops at the right time. Special teams apparently blocking punts and scoring touchdowns.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, Jimmy's winning. So, you can't really say anything bad about him. He's winning. That's the only thing that matters.
He's a perfect quarterback for the situation he's in. That's all you can say. And the amazing thing too is on Sunday they've got a really good chance to win. Because they've beaten the Rams 6 straight times. 6, including coming back from a 17-0 hole in week 18 to get into the playoffs. It's incredible that, like, the 49ers, a team who we didn't sleep on, but we didn't think they were going to be, anything super special, just is on the cusp of going to another Super Bowl. It's strange because, and 49er fans can probably correct me, and I don't really watch 49er games. I'm on the East Coast, obviously. I don't really know what they do exceptionally, or if they're just really good at every level of the game.
That's it right there. That's it.
They're really good at every level of the game.
They
They're
have
not
no
flashy.
weaknesses.
Yeah, they're not flashy. They're not a crushing defense. They're just very good. They're very professional at every position, and that's how you win.
Well, that being said, I think it's time to make some predictions for next week's games because, we have the matchups that are going to be set that's going to decide the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. So first and foremost, we're going to take it from the NFC first. Oh, look who decided to join the show now.
Oh, Bean's here now. Bean's into gambling. Who knew? Oh, and he's got a sweater.
Got a nice blue
I
sweater.
love it. Love that sweater. Good job,
All right,
Bean.
Bean.
Actually,
We're almost done with the podcast, so hold that thought.
you
All
gotta
right.
make a pick if you're gonna show up.
All right, Bean, you actually want to make picks? Want to make a pick, bud? No, buddy. Don't attack the dog. No,
He's
bud.
ranting.
Don't attack the dog. Okay, bud.
Is he
Let's
gonna
make
have
some
doofus?
Doofus in here. Doofus in Charlestown.
Uh-oh.
So
He's gotta calm down. He's really amped up. Look
He
at those arms.
no, he's ready to fight. He's ready to box. All right, bud.
All right,
you want to make a prediction?
You go first.
All right, so kicking off to the NFC Championship game. We got the 49ers and Rams. I don't think it's going to be a 7th straight game for the 49ers, and I got the Rams in this one. I think they've made too many moves, and they're on too good of a roll, and I think that Stafford, in his first year away from Detroit, gets to a Super Bowl.
I like the 49ers. I really love Deebo Samuel. I like Fred Warner. I like the fact their defensive line is playing so well. But I like the Matthew Stafford story a lot more. So I gotta go. I'm gonna take the Rams as well. And I look forward, and even if we're wrong, I don't mind, but I just really like the Rams. I feel like this is the moment they've been waiting for. This team was bought to win now, and I think they're ready to win now. Especially they got the bad demons exercise by beating Tampa. I'm gonna take the Rams. I'm gonna take the Rams.
Bean, who you got?
I'm taking the 49ers to prove you guys wrong.
That's not quite what he said, but he is taking the 49ers because he's apparently a really big Deebo Samuel fan. I don't blame you. I don't really blame you, but All right, so we got the Rams. Bean has the 49ers. You're not doing the Emperor Bean voice. You already know how that goes.
You want me to do the Emperor Bean voice? You're both idiots. I hate both of you. 49er Nation, rise up.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
Kyle Shanahan is the greatest coach of all time.
Bang,
Eat
bang,
it,
Niner
dog.
gang. All right, on to the next game. Of course, we have the Chiefs, led by my favorite quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, and the Bengals, led by my up-and-coming favorite quarterback in the league, Mr. Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr himself. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like to bet against Patrick Mahomes on this podcast, and I'm not going to do it here. And I still think that the Chiefs' defensive line is good enough to get to Joe Burrow, maybe even 10 times this game to get a win. So I got the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs in this one. I think Chris Jones and Frank Clark are going to make a living.
I mean, I hate to do it too, but the Bengals, I picked them. I thought they were going to make the playoffs. They did make the playoffs. They've exceeded my expectations in every way, shape, and form. But it's gotta end somewhere, and I think it's going to end in Kansas City against that defense. Frank Clark did not play in the last game against the Bengals. The Chiefs, they got over their big hump. They came back from being down 7 with 33 with 13 seconds to go. I feel like if you've got that kind of momentum on your side, it's got to be hard to just be like, "Oh no, we're scared of the Bengals." I don't think that's how it's going to be at all. In fact, I love the Bengals, but I think this is a New England Indianapolis AFC Championship learning experience for them, unfortunately. I think Kansas City is going to find a way to pull away early and stay ahead by a good margin. I think we're going to get that Rams Chiefs Super Bowl we all wanted 3 years ago and never got.
What you got?
I think you're both moronic to pick against the Bengals in this game. Jamar Chase will easily outrun every cornerback on the roster of the Kansas City Chiefs. If Tyrann Mathieu can't play, who will protect over the middle? The Bengals and 49ers are doomed to meet in every damned Super Bowl they're close to. They're gonna party like it's 1988.
Well, there's beansteaks.
And what's funny about that is, you want to know how I opened it up before he said all that?
What?
I cannot say shiesty. Your human slang matters nothing to me. For
But
I
I will-
am the Emperor.
He goes, but I will say that it is awful cold where I am from.
But that's why I wear my sweater.
Sweater bean. All right.
Sweater bean. We should make that into an NFT or something. Sweater
Sweat.
bean.
Sweater bean. That's right. Oh, thanks, bud. All right.
Oh, he likes it. He likes it. All right. Thanks for that guest appearance, Bean. We love you.
All right. That concludes another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports channel on YouTube, and in the comment section, tell us what you liked and what you didn't like. As always,
If we get 100 subscribers or something, I don't know. Maybe I'll do a whole show in the Emperor Bean voice. I don't know.
okay, can we please make that happen?
You sure you want that to happen?
Yes. I think
It's
Bean
all
wants
right.
it to happen.
Stop this madness now. I am your ruler.
All right. Well, since Bean has decided that we're not worth his time, we're going to get out of everyone's hair.
All right. Until next time, me and Matt are out.